But he's been to watch me quite a few times, and didn't he? He sat there with his hoodie just slipped over his face. That's what Lucy. Skylar did.
I was scared.
No, Lisa said...
I was holding my hood all over my face when the winning was coming in and covering my ears.
You get nervous when mummy fights?
Yeah, and then my brother picked me up and told me she won, and I got really happy.
Never in doubt.
But like you were saying, like because Katie and Dave put zero pressure on him, he comes to sparring. He still trains like all the fighters do. And he enjoys himself when he's doing it, and there's zero pressure with it.
Oh, that's the main.
It's the way
thing.
to be, I think.
You have to enjoy.
He's like, he's out. I've got
yeah. So we've got a little rule in the gym. Like once the kids represent the gym, they've earned their tracksuit. They've earned their fighter's tracksuit. He had his fight, got his tracksuit, and then he went, "Now sit now." I'm
That's a good way to do it.
He's literally he's got the tracksuit, and he's got the bragging rights, really, isn't he?
There's just this like Surrey, Kent area is just like full of like savages, isn't it? Like all the gyms and everything. It's like just why is everyone fighting around here? Like, I've come down here. I'm like, why is everyone fighting around here?
The thing is as well, like Dave said earlier, the fight communities, it's so small. Like the people you meet, like you go to a Thai show 4 or 5 times, you'll start recognising the same people, the same officials, the same, like there's only, in terms of like referees and things like that, you've probably got, I could probably name 4 or 5 referees, and I've been fighting since I was 11.
Yeah.
Like, and I can only name 4 or 5 referees.
They just love it, don't they?
Yeah, like if someone's good at their craft, the shows keep having their regulars, they have their regular judges, and yeah.
But we got Joe Turner with us, 2 times European champion, just come off the WBC fight, owner of the Muay Thai Hub, and I know there's a few others as well, but I could not remember every single one of them names. The first question I actually want to ask you is, when we went to Combat Fight Series, I was walking through, and the branding for Muay Thai Hub is perfect. Because I looked at it and I see Hub, and I was like, whoa. Oh, Muay Thai Hub. And I was like, whoa, I thought we were in the wrong type of party. But that branding, it just catches your eye, man. It's so perfect. How did you come up with the idea?
He's been on too much of the hub.
We know he's spending his time at camp.
Do you know what? It was a little joke in a way, because when I first started discussing the page, we never had a name for it. I never had a name for it. I was discussing it between friends and things like that, and I kind of said, it's going to have to stick. Like, obviously I wanted to commit myself to it, and I was ready to do that, and I had to pick something that people were going to remember. And I said loads of names. I messaged so many people with a list going, out of all these names, which one do you think that you'd remember the most? And Muay Thai Hub stood out. And then as soon as we made the logo, it stood out even more.
Yeah. And
I'm not going to lie, when I first did it, I got a lot of people almost give me a little bit of a stick in a way, a little bit of stick over it. And my answer was the same every time. Made you remember it. Like, and it stuck, and people supported it. And I've been doing it ever since. And then obviously when I found out on Instagram, you can make more than one account. I made the MMA page. Yeah. I made a kickboxing page, because obviously I was going to shows like Combat Fight Series, who had K1 fights on. So I was doing kickboxing K1 Hub, and then I'd start filming the Muay Thai fights, and I was back to Muay Thai Hub. So it was another area of the fight scene I got to see in a way, without being involved in the corner or being in the ring myself or being in the crowd, and I just loved it. I was able to go backstage without having to worry about another fighter. I could just sit there and talk to all the coaches, film things that the crowd don't see. Like the crowd can't go backstage. No. So and a lot of people, when they first start going to shows, they don't have a clue what goes on behind the scenes. So it kind of was a way of filming what goes on, showing people this is what fighters do. This bloke yesterday was delivering parcels for Royal Mail. Now he's fighting in the ring. Like that was my main goal, and the goal from it as well was I got fed up of fighters moaning about not having any money in the sport, and there's a reason for that. The sport's not big enough, Muay Thai wise, and I looked and I thought, do you know what? Like, what's the difference between MMA and Muay Thai, and why are MMA fighters paid so much compared to Muay Thai? And it's because there's less viewers on it. So I kind of thought the sport doesn't have enough social media exposure. So the way I can do that is by starting my own page. I did. Everyone jumped onto it. I don't know whether that was because of the way I approached it, or I don't know whether that was because of the logo, or it stuck. And I'm lucky enough to have a lot of friends that bought the t-shirts and stuff off me, and it was almost like a billboard that was being worn at shows by people on their chest.
Yeah.
And then everyone was going, what's that? And then I suppose people were just going, look at them on Instagram, you'll understand. And everyone did. They started following it. I was getting invited to go to shows. I was driving up to Manchester to go do like Super Showdown, things like that. And I was having people coming up to me asking for pictures. I'd never met these people before in my life. And I wasn't known for Joe the fighter. I was like, they were literally going, you're that Muay Thai hub guy. And I was like, yeah, like, I'll take that. Like, brilliant. Like, and it was just, from that moment onwards, I was hooked. I was like, this is brilliant. Like, I'm being recognised for not being a fighter, and I'm helping the sport at the same time. And I got a lot of support from people I never thought I'd ever get support from. Like, for example, Kai Evans and TJ Simmons, they both just had a fight on Combat Fight Series. As soon as I started the page, I've never met these guys before. Never. They literally, both of them messaged me, when whatever merch you got, we'll pay full price. We want to support you. They don't know each other. They don't know me. They bought everything, literally everything. And I've now got a great relationship with the two of them because they've supported me from the day off. I would have never met them if I didn't start the page. I probably would have met them because I'm in the fight.
Build community, you know.
I'm in the fight scene anyway, but I probably would have never spoken to them as much or communicated with them as much if I didn't have the Muay Thai hub.
Has it made you enjoy it more as a fan then? Because you've been fighting from such a young age. Have you actually got back to sit there and say, wow, I'm like a fan of the sport, so I can actually enjoy it?
It has, yeah. I've learned a lot of new skills from it in terms of the video creating and things like that. So, like, obviously I've got 5 pages, I do. So in terms of the content, it's don't get me wrong, it's a pain in the backside. Like, getting up every morning, making sure I'm posting, otherwise the content's not daily and flowing. I've learnt new skills from it. I'm going to shows not to spectate. I'm going to shows to view, like, and film. And I'm filming these knockouts, and I'm helping these fighters expose themselves. And it's such a great feeling knowing that, like, I've done a knockout reel for a fighter before, and that fighter's gone, oh my God, that video you did was really cool, really liked it. I would have never spoken to that fighter as much if I never filmed that video. And it's as well as me making that content, I'm creating a little bond in a way with that fighter.
You're opening doors.
And especially, and aside from that, I'm helping the promotions. So, like, Combat Fight Series, I'm filming the fights. If there's a knockout, I'm posting it. And a few of them they've gone viral. And the way I see it is, if someone that's never been involved in combat sports in their life has seen that video and think, wow, I'm going to go to that show, that's another ticket to the promoter. And that's another, however much that ticket was, that's more money that can go to the next show. And then if the show gets to the point where it can be at the O2 Arena and hundreds of thousands of people are coming, there's no reason why the fighters can't be paid more. And then people can stop moaning about being paid less.
Yeah.
That was my thought. I always said, butterfly effect. You want more people, you want to get paid more. Get more people to the shows do better. Bigger venue, fill out the venue, more money. There we go. And the fight scene's winning, everyone's a winner. And that was my kind of thoughts around it.
Has it brought more exposure to your own page and your own fight career?
I would say it has. Like I said, I've been to shows before where they've recognised me as the Muay Thai hub guy, and then they also go, right, I'm going to... Because a lot of the time, they kind of... I like when I introduce myself in my videos, I go, right, I'm Joe Turner here. Everyone looks at my own personal Instagram, and it has brought my Instagram following up slightly, but that obviously wasn't why I did the page. I would say yes. A lot of the Muay Thai hub kind of thing has given me a little bit more exposure as a fighter myself as well. It's also added a little more pressure, I would say. A lot of people, like I said, I've met a lot of people through doing the pages that I wouldn't have normally met. So I've got more people viewing me whilst I'm fighting, and it adds to the pressure slightly when you've got a lot more people expecting
More eyes on you.
especially because like I'm doing a page where I'm sharing the sport and stuff like that. Everyone expects me to know everything about the sport, and I'm like, I'm 22. I'm still learning. Like I'm a baby in the sport almost, and it's almost like I'm expected to be this certain standard. And don't get me wrong, like without trying to blow my own trumpet, I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. I'm not there where I want to be yet, but I would say yes to your question. Yeah.
And let's take it back to when you first started. How did you get involved with the scene?
It's an interesting one. So about 5 minutes away from my house, there was a gym, and at the time I was in primary school, year 6. I was being picked on by these 3 kids, and all of them were bigger than me. I didn't know what to do. I hate fighting. I'm the least violent person in the world. I'm a massive softie. You can ask my friends, my parents, and it's not me. And my mum and dad just got fed up really, and they said, "You're going to this gym. Your cousin trains there. You're going to either learn how to fight, or you're going to learn how to deal with the situation." And I went there on a Saturday. I'm not going to lie, I didn't like it. But my parents were like, you're going there because we'd like you to learn how to defuse the situation or how to fight, defend yourself. And I'm quite lucky because at the time, one of my best friends, Cam, who still trains with me now, he went with me. And he's probably one of the reasons why I stuck at it. We used to get to the gym earlier and train together. It was a way of, like an after-school club, in a way. And I got to a point where I started getting a little bit... I was rubbish. I was absolutely rubbish. But I was enjoying it so much because I was with my friends. I was going and going and going. And it got to the point where my coach at the time, Jesse, he was like, "You're here all the time. Why don't I stick you in for an interclub?" And this is as junior. We can't get hit in the head or anything like that. And I went, and my friends were egging me on. And like I said, I'm not a violent person whatsoever. I ended up doing it. And I got absolutely battered. Absolutely battered. And I remember being this 11-year-old kid, and I cried my eyes out. And I kind of said, like, this really isn't me. I don't want to do it again. Like, that was horrible. But I carried on training because I enjoyed the training. Like I said, pressure's a big aspect of it. My mum and dad never expected me to fight, but they expected me to train or commit myself to it. So as long as I was training, they were completely happy. I didn't have to fight. My mum's a nervous wreck anyway when I was fighting. She still is now. So I carried on training, and it got to there was another interclub coming up. So there's no winners or losers in an interclub. You can't win, can't lose. But you still, obviously, you're going against someone that's going to be competitive towards you. And I went against this other lad, and I got the better of him. And I remember getting out the ring, and I had a little swarm of my friends coming up to me saying, like, how well I did and how great it was. I was hooked. That little moment when I got out of that ring after being a little more dominant to my opponent, I was hooked. That was that feeling of someone coming up to me and going, "Wow, you just did that." That was like I was hooked from there on, and that kind of recognition, it gave me motivation to do it again. I did it again, and over, and then I did my first decision fight. I think I must have been 13 by the time I got to a proper fight. And I fought K1. It's my one and only K1 fight. I still couldn't do head contact or anything like that. It was in some sports hall in Portsmouth, some show. I must have had about 20 people watching. It was really like a really low-level amateur show. And I absolutely wiped the floor with this kid. And I remember having my dad film it for me. And I took it into school, and I showed all the other kids the video and stuff like that. And again, the recognition of, wow, you've just done something that not a lot of other people have done, and not a lot of other people could do. That was it for me. I was hooked on it, and I kept fighting, and I've got to the point where now I've almost had 60 fights now, including my junior record, obviously, and professional. Like, I've just kept going and going. I haven't stopped.
And you're 22.
22.
Jesus. And when did you actually turn pro?
So we have this rule set in Thai boxing called Pro-Am. So it's full rules, but with elbow pads. That was probably what I would consider a pro rules fight. Or pro, some people say it's when you take your shin pads off. Some people say it's when you fight A-class, which is elbows to the head with no protection and things like that. I was 15 at the time, 15, maybe just turning 16. I was just going into year 11 or in year 11 at school. And I remember I was sat around my grandparents eating a sausage and bacon sandwich, like, didn't have any fights coming up. I was eating cakes, I was enjoying myself. And I had a call from my coach, and he said, I've just had a phone call. And at the time, obviously, I wasn't working, so I'd never have any money or anything like that. I've had a phone call, we've been offered a fight next week. Because it's short notice, they've offered you 100 quid. Do you want to take it? And I went, oh my God, 100 quid? Like, yeah, like, let's do it. And he was like, right, if they do ask, you're 16. And I was like, right, that's fine. Yeah, like, it doesn't bother me. And I'd already done head contact fights and things like that. So it was about time to kind of step it up with taking the shin pads off and stuff like that. And I was guaranteed by my teammates that you don't feel it without the shin pads. So I did it. And there was a girl at school that I really liked, and she said if I won this fight, she'd give me a kiss. And that literally was a big factor. That was a big factor in this fight for me. And I took this fight, and I've come to the gym the next day, because obviously I've got to get training. Yeah. I'm like, Jesus. I had to lose only a little bit of weight. At the time, I never used to cut weight when I was younger. Like Dave said earlier on, the juniors, no pressure to cut weight whatsoever. I took this fight. I've turned up to the gym the next day, and bearing in mind I was a 15, 16-year-old kid. I was tiny. My coach was like, right, you're fighting a 24-year-old man in his hometown. His grandparents are Essex gangsters. It's their show. I'm going to be honest with you, you're not expected to win. You're the only Thai boxing fight on the card. It's all boxing officials, so you will have to batter him to beat him. So brilliant, here we go. But I was so happy because I was getting 100 quid.
Yeah.
Like, I was 15 and like, oh my God, this is 100 quid. I can buy trainers, I can go out, I can get like sweets, everything. And I did it, and I absolutely wiped the floor with him. And I just remember celebrating after the win, and my corner team going, we need to go. Like, we need to go. You weren't supposed to win, we need to go. Like, now, collect your money, we're going. And yeah, from there on, I started fighting bare shin. I think 15, 16 was a massive turning point for me in terms of my career. I really stepped it up between 15 and 16. I went to Thailand when I was 16, things like that.
How long did you stay in Thailand?
So I've been to Thailand twice now. Both times I've gone was 2 weeks. I've always been told you have to go minimum 10 days, because by the time you accumulate to the heat and the time difference is obviously a big factor there as well. You're already 10 days in. So I went for 2 weeks the first time, and I went to Kip on Tip in Bangkok. It's a really like traditional way to train. They're very old school. It's like a shed basically. You've got a rundown ring, you've got proper Thai style training, and they absolutely killed me for 2 weeks. Like, knock on your door at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're going running. Before it gets too hot, you're doing your 13k runs and stuff like that. And they'd get back, you'd do 2 hours training. Then they'd give you like 3-4 hours rest to go to the market, get yourself some nice lunch, rest, sit down, do nothing. Then it would be about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you would skip for half an hour, do the same thing again without the run, because it was too hot by then. And plus, if you went for a run in the afternoon, you had things like the wild dogs and things like that. Yeah. Especially in the area I was in, it was really like a rural area to kind of a part of Thailand, but it was beautiful, it was lovely. And then the second time, I went there for a holiday, and I thought, right, there's no way I'm going there for a holiday. I'm not going to a rural area. I'm going somewhere really nice. So I went, right, do you know what? I'm going to go to Samui. And but I still knew there was a good couple of gyms out there. So I ended up staying in Samui. I went to a gym called Georgia. Training there, I was massive at the time. I was like really enjoying my food. I fight in the UK at about 58, 59 kilos. At the time, I was fighting at 57, like when I was 18 on the second time I went. And there was a trainer that really took a liking to me. Somehow he found me on Facebook. I don't know how. And I remember training there for about just over a week. So I had about 4 days left of my stay before I started going back to the airport. It's like a 2-day trip to get to Thailand. And he found me on Facebook, and he called me whilst I was in my hotel. And he just went like, you fight. I was like, no, I'm here for a holiday. He went, no, you be okay, you fight. And at the time I had my girlfriend with me, and she went, go on, do it. Like, that'd be like really memorable. Like, he said you'll be all right. Like, do it. And go on then. Like, I'll do it. And then the next day, I'm at training, and some small Thai man come to the gym on a moped, just whizzing about. He's got this really, I remember it being like a really old camera, and he just pointed at me and went, "You, here," like that, and he went, "Cross," like that. So I went, "All right," like that, hold like that, and he took a picture of me. And I went to my trainer. I went, "Who's that?" And he went, "That's the promoter of the stadium." And I went, "Stadium?" Like that. And he went, Yeah. That was brilliant. Okay, right. And he went, "Right, step on the scales." And I was like, "Oh no, brilliant!" Like, here we go. I was like 65 kilos at the time, and I was drinking smoothies every day. I was on holiday. You imagine when you go on holiday, you let yourself go a bit, didn't you? So I was like, brilliant. Here we go. I got matched at 65 kilos, and the next day I've got up, going to training on the moped. I stopped. There's a billboard there. And I stopped, pulled over. There's a massive billboard. I'm on it. At Choweng Stadium. I was like, oh, God. Right. And then I've gone to training. There's posters everywhere. By the time I got to the gym, I've seen about 4 or 5 posters. There's tuk-tuks driving around with the stadium poster imprinted on the tuk-tuk.
Mental, man.
I was like, oh, no. Like, what have I got myself into? And the promoter's whizzed about, got to the gym again, and he's gone. And I said to my trainer, like, what's he here for now? Like, what am I doing? And he's here to watch you train, to like see who to match you with, and he's watching me train, and so I thought, oh, I need to impress this guy. And when I finished training, my trainer went. He said, oh no, he was shaking his head, and I went, what did I do something wrong? He said, you trained too hard. He said, that's not what you're supposed to do. He said, make yourself look crap so you get you an easy fight. He said, you looked good. And I was like, oh no. And then the promoter come up to me and went, he said, fight I have for you. He went, too easy. So I was like, he went, I get you someone good. And he walked away before I could answer him. I was like, brilliant, here we go. Like, this is one way to finish off a holiday. And I ended up training for this fight. And I remember warming up. My trainer at the time, he had a fag in his mouth, and he's rubbing me down with tile. I didn't get any pads to warm up, nothing. It was shadow box to warm up. He's literally massaging me whilst he's smoking his cigarette. And I remember thinking and looking around, there's no one here my size, like no one my height. And I was petrified, absolutely petrified. I was in a foreign country. I had my girlfriend at the time with me, and that was it. I had no people. I had a few of the French guys that I was training with come to support and things like that. That's all I had. But they weren't in the changing room with me. And ended up walking out to fight. I had a little bit of overhang over my shorts, where I'd been on holiday. I got in the ring, and this Thai got in the ring who was next to me whilst I was warming up. And
It's like Danny McGowan's saying, innit?
and I remember in the training room when I was looking around trying to find people who I was potentially going to fight, I was thinking, no way, he's way too big. I won't consider that one. It was him. So brilliant, here we go. And I remember I've done my sealing the ring and things like that. To be honest, I wanted another 2 minutes to try and calm my nerves. That's why I did it. And I remember rounds 1 and 2, he absolutely kicked the crap out of me. And I come back to the corner. I remember the tyres were chucking ice down my shorts to try and, because I was starting to get concussed. I was rocked a few times. They're chucking ice down my shorts. They were yanking on my hair. And I asked them afterwards, and they said that activates the nerves in your brain, the tyres for. And
Anything to
Does that actually help? Is that a real thing?
I don't actually know. To be honest, I don't remember much of it. So obviously, Thai boxing, the later rounds score the most. So I always remember saying to myself, get through the first few, he's going to blow out, hopefully. And it was a trainer. I was actually fighting a trainer from a rival gym. And the Thai trainer was saying, there's one thing that's working for you, it's your left kick. Just throw left kick. I remember 3, 4 and 5, all I threw was a left leg, just constantly threw it and threw it and threw it. And this Thai was walking through them all. But he wasn't defending them. He was taking them on the arms, which is scoring. And I remember in round 5, I booted his elbow, and I tore the ligaments in my left foot. I couldn't put any weight on it whatsoever, but I had about 30 seconds left of the last round. I was hobbling about the ring for the last 30 seconds, and I won. And immediately I was on crutches straight after that. I was hobbling about Samui Airport literally the day after my fight with like a concussion and a massively swollen foot. And
That's a pretty mad.
That is that is mental.
yeah, the first fight I had in Thailand, pretty much, that was a little bit of a setup as well. That's the one and only time I've been dropped as well. I was 16 the first time I went to Thailand, and again, it was one of those things. It was always the dream once I started fighting. Oh, maybe I can work my way up to get to Thailand, and that's the dream. It's most young people's dream to fight in Thailand when they fight, even older people when they start. So as soon as I went to Thailand and the possibility was there of me fighting, I jumped at it straight away. And obviously I was in a very rural area in my first trip. So they take the bigger promotions fights because they get more money out of it. And at the time I said, right, whatever I get, I'll just give it to the gym because that'll mean a lot to them. Like the purse wasn't a lot, but in Thailand, that's a lot of money. So I give it to them, and we've got on a bus to go to the show after I've trained, and they've absolutely murdered me for 2 weeks. And I just remember arriving at a field, and there was goats running about on this field. And I thought, like, the coach has broken down or something. And then these tyres come running about with, like, some makeshift ring. And they started putting up the ring in the middle of this field, and the goats were still running around the ring. Like, it was... I remember looking to my coach and going, you are joking, like, what? And we went off in a taxi, go and get some food, come back. By the time I come back, there was 400 minimum seats around this ring, and a TV crew set up, everything. And I just remember thinking, like, exactly the same as what I said about my second fight. Oh no, like, I didn't know who I was fighting, nothing. And I knew who I was fighting because it was being televised. They made us rehearse, walk into the ring. So I knew who my opponent was. So they was looking around again, couldn't see anyone my size. And I remember them calling out my name, and I had to walk to the ring, and they gave me a combination. They said, you have to do something silly like, oh, you have to do a 1-2 uppercut when you walk into the ring and face the camera. You have to look at the camera, face the camera, throw your 1-2 uppercut, and then you go to your corner. Then your opponent walks in after you. That's the rehearsal done. So I think, right, I'm going to know who I'm fighting now. Hopefully it's like a small Thai. Like, I'm going to have a really technical bout and things like that. This absolute monster walks into the ring. And I was 16 at the time. This bloke had scars all over his face. And I spoke to him after the fight. And I'll get to the fight in a second. And he said, I said, how many fights? He went, every 2 weeks. Like that. And I went, what? He went, every 2 weeks. He went, my job. Like that. I was like, oh.
They're just different out there.
And I spoke to my coach, and he went, yeah, he said about 200 fights by the time. And I'm like, oh, brilliant. Like, but it was quite nice because he battered me. So it kind of made me feel a little bit better. I remember getting in the ring with this Thai, and immediately I was like, I've got nothing on him, literally nothing. And I remember round 3, I kicked him, and he threw me into the ropes, and he jumped, and then I flying in, hit me in the eye socket, and my eye just immediately went whoop, like that. And he almost stopped before he went to finish me off because he wanted me to get back up because I was a kid. He didn't want to stop me because I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I just remember like feeling like this is where I've hit an all-time, like, is it really, can it get any worse than this? Like, the bloke's literally stopping from finishing me off because he feels sorry for me. And then I remember just getting back to the corner, and my coach was going, do you want to carry on? Like, you can barely see. And I went, yeah, no, like, quitting's not even an option. That's one thing that's been embedded into me since I started. And I went through 4 and 5, and I remember 5, there's something called hand in the glove. They don't do it a lot anymore, but when I was fighting, when I was 16, in Thailand, that was a very big thing. If you'd admitted defeat, and you were like, right, this guy is clearly better than me, he's better on the scorecards, everything, you offer your hand. You go like that, tap gloves, you circle the ring. And every time the ref goes fight, you might do a push kick or something like that, back to circling off. And eventually the timekeeper clocks on to what you're doing, rings the bell. Short, calls the fight short. And it got to the point where it ended up being like that. My coach was literally like, give him your glove. Like, you're going to end up getting hurt. Like, give him your hand. He said, you're not quitting. He said, you're going the full fight. He said, he will still beat you on points. And so I ended up doing that. And then I found out about how experienced this guy was. And it it was horrible. Like, it was really demoralising. And I learnt a big lesson that night, because I was, at the time, in England, like, when you fight and you lose, some people, it's a really big deal. Thailand, literally, I remember the owner of the gym's wife went back to the gym and she saw me crying, and she was like, "Why are you crying?" Like, and I had this massive swell on my head. I was like, blood dripping out my nose. Like, I was in a bad way. She was like, "Why are you crying?" And I remember thinking, like, look at me. Like, she went, she said, "Train tomorrow on the things that aren't injured." And she was like, "Stay for another 2 weeks and fight again." And
it's just so simple for them, isn't it?
It was so simple, and it almost flicked something in my head where it was like, wow, it really is so common for them out there. Like, here, you think of a UFC fighter, when they have their fights, it's a massive deal. They train for 16 weeks, thinking about 15 to 20 minutes in a ring. Them, it's like they take fights on a couple of hours' notice, and it ain't a big deal to them, because it's such a key part of their life. They fight like from such a young age to earn money. Like, here we do it like Dave said earlier on. Everyone does it because we do it, because we love it. Out there, they do it for income. Like, they do it for income. If they win by a KO, they get a bonus. It's more money, more money to feed the kids. So that's why they're animals. That's why they train like animals.
It's completely different hunger. It's
completely different hunger. It's a lot harder to stop someone when they're fighting to feed their family. Whereas if you're fighting someone that's doing it for a hobby, obviously you get certain exceptions. Some people are just animals in general. It's harder to stop someone that's feeding their family than someone that's doing it for a hobby.
Yeah.
Out there in Thailand, I believe that's why they're so good at what they do, is because they are fighting for money. And especially the kids and things like that, they are fighting from such a young age, because the way their parents see it is, for example, if you've got an 8-year-old son that can throw a kick, that's an income. If I put him in for a fight, he's only young, he's going to heal. That's an income. That can pay for the rent.
That's
like,
mental, isn't it?
There's in Thailand, there's a lot of it all the time where the kids are actually the breadwinners for the family. Like, they fight because the parents, like the father, for example, if he was a Muay Thai fighter, they fight so often from such a young age, they have to retire early. They hit 30 and their knees are either smashed from all the road running they do, or their shins are like obliterated, or they're just brain dead, or they're forced into retiring into a padman to being a trainer. So the kids then are the breadwinners. Like, some of the money that's betted and gambled on kids' fights in Thailand, I've said it before on the pages. It's like, there was a kids' fight not long ago. Like, kids are winning like 200, the equivalent to 200 grand in the UK on fights. And 200 grand in the UK, if that was in Thailand, that's millions to them.
They're winning that.
Yeah, the gambling side bets.
Yeah,
side bets. So, like, winning that for your family, you've changed your family's life for forever.
Yeah.
And obviously, I know some of that does go back to the gym, and that's they are very much like a community out there. You almost like I use the comparison to football. So you're signed to your club almost. You represent your club. You're part of that club. You earn money for that club. You are a fighter for them, and it's like, yeah, it's just absolutely mental out there.
That's the one thing with Thai boxing that I love, that the culture of it comes over. It doesn't get lost. Like, people come to the rings with the Thai stuff and the music's going on in between rounds. Like, it's so beautiful that the culture's been able to go from Thailand to England, and it still stays with everyone, even if there's no Thais fighting on the card.
So I think it's more of a, like, again, I'm going to use the football comparison. You wouldn't play a game of football and go, I don't like the shape of that goal, I'm going to change it to a triangle.
Yeah.
It's the sport. It is Muay Thai. You don't fight Muay Thai and go, I don't like that, I'm going to take that away. Like, you wouldn't play football and go, I don't like that ball, I'm going to take it away and replace it with an American football. Like, I think that's a huge part of it. And I think respecting the tradition, to an extent, I feel like maybe to get the crowd more involved, maybe a few things could be tweaked. For example, the three round fights compared to 5 round fights. but yeah, no, I completely. I love the fact that everyone's so much respectful towards the tradition.
Yeah.
There's always the music and things like that. There have been some shows what kind of cut it out and replace it with, but that's their own kind of trail of thought. But a lot of gyms a lot of shows, follow suit.
Yeah. Do you actually think, with the level of how good the English fighters are now, that people need to go over to Thailand and train, or do you think you can get to a world high level from England?
I believe, and I actually had this discussion not long ago. I believe, especially with the accessibility to flights and things like that now, it's become so easy to fly a trainer over to England than it has been to go over there. Obviously, I think a lot of the reason why people get so good when they go to Thailand is you are going there to train. There is nothing else for you to do. Yeah.
You can't get
Whereas when you're in the UK, you've got your job, you've got your family, you've got everything else. When you go to Thailand, you train and then wait to train again. There's nothing else for you to do. I think that's a massive part of it. Aside from being, I think it's like the home of the Muay Thai scene.
Yeah.
So if you want to get good, you go to Thailand. So like the second time I went to Thailand, I ended up going and I ended up training with one of the Israeli IFMA medalists. I would have never trained with him in England. Whereas we've both almost met in Thailand and trained together. I learned a lot from him. So I believe a big factor of why people get good when they go to Thailand is they're doing it because they're there because they've got nothing else to do. They are there solely to train. So in England, you might train once an evening because you've got a job. Thailand, you train in the morning. You're thinking about training in the evening. And then you're also training with people from around the world that have gone there to do the same thing as you.
Yeah.
So I think it meets with the saying, iron sharpens iron. Because it is, you're meeting other people that have got the exact same desire and motivation as you, and you're almost competing with each other. And whilst you're doing that, you're both growing and learning so much.
And I heard you speak about that your overall goal in Thai is to get to one championship, like most other people. Are you still on track in your own head to do that? And how do you think you're going to get there?
I think since I last said that, I think my goals, to be honest, have changed slightly. I'm not overly bothered. Obviously, if I got a call from your chat tree and went fight for one championship, I'd be over the moon and I'd jump at the opportunity. However, since starting teaching, since starting the Muay Thai Hub, since doing all that, I've seen another side to the sport which I've fallen in love with just equally as much. And I think if I was to ever sign with one championship, I couldn't be an engineer at the same time. And I'd have to give all that up. I wouldn't be able to focus on the kids that I train as much because I'd have to focus on myself.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'd jump at the opportunity if I could. I absolutely would. But I'm quite happy with the track I'm kind of going to.
Yeah.
And I'm doing all right at the moment in terms of I'm 22. I'm getting stronger and stronger every fight I have. I'm learning things, even with weight cuts and things like that. I'm learning things all the time. The junior squad that myself and Dave and all the other assistant coaches train, they're getting great. That's another feeling and side of the sport I get. And in the Muay Thai Hub, that's growing and growing as well. Like, I've got so many different goals and things that are developing and progressing in different aspects of the same community. I'm happy with how it's going.
Yeah.
I'm really happy. I'm happy with my own fight career, how it's going. I'm happy with where I'm training. I'm happy with my coaching side. I'm happy with the social media side as well.
Well, you're still super young as well, and you literally just come off was it a world title fight for WBC?
WBC British.
WBC British. How do you think you performed in that fight? That geezer, he was tall as well. He was.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I was like, he looks massive.
So I've always struggled with being the shorter of my weight division. There's a lot of people out there that are stupidly tall. For example, I've fought Liam Patel, who can make, I think he's made 57 before. 57, 58.
Yeah.
6'1". He's 6'1", and I mean, like that is ridiculous. And I mean this in no disrespect to him whatsoever, because he's UK number 3. He's an incredibly talented fighter. He's ridiculously skinny, very skinny, and I don't think my frame could ever be like that. And it immediately puts me at a disadvantage. And there's a lot of fighters out there that are very very tall and things like that. And Anthony Deary was one of them. And I remember we went to Manchester to take the kids to the junior championships. His team had a team out there. And it was one of those things, I think we were about 4 or 5 weeks away from the fight. And I'd met Anthony before, but I kind of forgotten about how big he was. And him and his team there, and then we were all like having a laugh. And this is another thing about the Thai community, which is so good. We're all having a laugh with each other. In 4 weeks, we're going to try and knock each other out. And his team were like, right, let's get a picture. And they took a picture of us. And I just remember looking up and going, wow, like I've got my job cut out for me here.
Yeah.
And I looked at the picture as well, and I'm literally looking vertically up at his head, like to face off with him. I'm thinking, like, how are these people making weight? And I think it is a key factor is in, like we're saying, like you were saying earlier on, with bone density and things like that. Obviously, I probably could get a little bit lighter than what I have been fighting at, but I think natural bone density. I think mindset's a big part of the diet as well. If you've got a really concrete mindset with your nutrition and things like that, and you can constantly keep it down, that's something that I don't have a strength in. I will openly admit that I'm really bad with my relationship with food.
Foodie.
I'm a massive foodie, and I believe it's a weakness. It is a massive weakness. When I, like, for example, I'll happily admit it, I'm touching nearly 70 kilos now. Right, my last fight, I weighed in with Anthony Deere at 58.8, and I should be lighter than 58.8. I believe if I had a very concrete mindset with food, I believe I could probably get down to about 57, and I would be very strong at 57.
Yeah.
But I need to work on it, and I'm young. I'm still learning, and I believe that's where I need to go. In terms of the actual fight itself, every area I tried to work on, I wasn't having as much success as I hoped. We worked constantly for about 15 weeks. I'm sure Katie will say I bruised her leg to pieces. We were drilling low kicks and calf kicks because it's not something that's necessarily drilled in the Thai scene as much as body kicks and stuff like that. So we drilled it, and especially because Anthony was so tall, his legs were smaller. I had big legs compared to him, so we were like, right, let's try and hammer his legs in a bit. And then when he's not,
down like a tree.
when his legs were in so much pain, then go for the head, because that's my highlight. My left head kick. That's all I've ever been exceptionally good at is my left head kick. That's what I love doing, and everyone knows me for that now because I've had so many fights. Everyone's like, right, if you're fighting Joe Turner, you train for a left head kick. So it was to mix things up, go for the legs and things like that. But he got in there, and I struggled so much with the height difference and, to be honest, the nerves as well. Like I said earlier on with the Muay Thai hub and stuff like that, up north it seems to have taken off a little bit more than it has down south as well. I've got quite a nice little fan base up there. And it was almost like I had so much pressure on my shoulders, and I tried to sway it off in a way, but I did have a lot of pressure on my shoulders. And Anthony was just the better bloke on the night. Every box in terms of the ring, he ticked it. He was good in close, he was good at distance, he's an exceptional talent, very, very good. And I can see him taking over the division, to be honest, massively.
We're going on to like the world stage and stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, he's beaten me for the WBC British. He's now got the WBC International now against Finn Keating. It's a very interesting fight, but I honestly can see Anthony, and this is the thing as well, he's got, I don't want to sound stereotypical, he's got a really Scouse kind of way of thinking. I will fight anyone, and I will beat anyone. And like he was saying to me, like he done something to his foot quite badly on my head, and I never noticed it. He didn't flinch. Like he literally shows no fear whatsoever, and he trains his absolute heart out. And I believe especially with his frame as well, it gives him an advantage. His work ethic and his frame and things like that, like, it's going to make him. It makes him an absolute monster, and the fact that he can get so low in weight, it's brilliant for him. Absolutely brilliant. He's got a good team around him as well. Yeah. That's a very important aspect.
Do you get more pleasure out of watching the kids and stuff win, or winning your own fights?
So this is a difficult question for me, because in terms of actually doing the fights, I absolutely hate fighting. I absolutely despise fighting whatsoever. I think, but in terms of watching our kids fight, like especially like I've got my little sister fighting, and she's had 2 fights now. She's won both of them. Seeing a kid that myself and Dave and the coaches have trained myself, seeing them win and succeed, or do something that you've taught them, that's a feeling like I've never experienced it. Like even in the ring, I've never experienced a feeling like that. Knowing that you've taught them a certain kick, and you see them do it, and you think, wow, I remember being in the gym drilling that with them, and seeing them pull it off and then win a fight with it or something like that. That's a feeling like no other. Massively, I can't compare it to. But then obviously winning a fight myself and kind of having your hand raised, and then like I said earlier on, the winning feeling of getting out the ring and people going, wow, you just did that, and like, yeah, this is Joe Turner, he's done this and that, and listing my accomplishments, that's a different feeling, and it's a great feeling. And I feel like you can ask fighters why they fight. A lot of people say, I love fighting. I don't. I absolutely hate it. I like I said, I'm not a violent person whatsoever. I do it for my reputation, in a way. I feel like if I did the Muay Thai Hub, but I'd never had a fight before, and I was trying to preach to someone about fights and what they should do, they'd kind of go, who are you? And I feel like if I get to a point where I've been there and done the lot, I can kind of have a little bit of an opinion, and a valid opinion.
Yeah.
On what, and I feel like as well, every time I step through them ropes, I'm showing the kids how it's done, almost. And I want to set a good example for them to how, especially now I am teaching. I think when I was at school, I used to get a lot of stick for, especially in the Muay Thai community, like we spoke about earlier, if you lose a fight, it's not a big deal. People that don't do Muay Thai don't know that. They look at the boxing, the undefeated records and things like that.
Yeah.
You lose a fight. I used to get absolutely ridiculed at school if I lost a fight. And it almost was like, all right, we'll see. Like, right. And I used to run to the gym, and I used to do everything in my power to win them fights. And if I lost a fight, it was horrible. I used to almost get picked on at school for losing a fight.
Yeah.
From people that had never put a pair of gloves on in their life. And it used to really get to me. And it made me work so hard. And it got to the point where it's almost like, watch me, I'm going to do this. And I spoke about this not long ago with someone, and I said, like, they're very judgmental, especially kids. They're very judgmental. Like, if they see that you've failed at something, they won't hesitate to set the mick out of you for it.
Yeah.
And as being a kid myself, especially not with a good, an educated mindset on that it's okay to lose, I really took it to heart, and it made me train like an animal. And like I said, when I hit 15, 16, that was a massive milestone for me, massively, because I believe it was the time where I really stepped everything up. I was doing football until I was about 14, and it got to a point, I discussed it on the way here actually, I lost a fight, and my coach come up to me after the fight and went, if you weren't playing football twice a week, maybe you would have won that fight.
Yeah.
Savage.
And it clicked in my head. Yeah. It clicked in my head, and I quit football that day. Football was dead to me that day, and it wasn't the fact that I didn't enjoy being with my friends. It was like, Jesus, if I really want to actually win these fights and get a nice little reputation for myself, I need to start outworking everyone. I need to start doing what they're not, and it went from there really.
And what's the most important thing for you a fighter can have, or should work on?
Most important thing for a fighter to work on, I would say, have the attitude of, I can't stop and I won't stop. And that in that aspect, in many aspects, I can't stop running. Do more runs. I always have the attitude, and I always say it to the kids, whenever they stop or whenever they don't want to come to a training session. And obviously, like we were saying with the pressure, if they're not fighting, don't come training, that's fine. Enjoy yourself, go home. If they've got a fight and they need to train, if they've committed themselves to a fight, I always say the same thing, and it gets him every time. I go, your opponent's training right now. They soon get up. They soon start working. And I say it to myself. I've always said it to myself. Even when I was a teenager, I used to purposely stalk my opponents to see what they were doing, and then I'd make myself do it. If I saw my opponent had just done a 10k run, I wouldn't care what training I've done. I'd make myself go and do a 10k run. So, done more. And in my head, it was almost like a little moral victory.
Yeah.
Competition.
It was, yeah. And I'd say I'd say competitiveness. That's a massive aspect of it. Like that's what I'd give someone. Be humble, but be very competitive. And I believe that's a massive factor. Always try and outwork someone. And if you feel like you're struggling for motivation, think of your opponent. Think of how much they're working to beat you up. I say that as well. Your opponent's training to beat you up right now. What are you going to do about it? And it normally gets myself. It gets all the kids I train in to stick, because it almost goes, you're right. I need to I need to up my game a little bit, and it always works. Always.
Who's someone or a number of people that people need to watch out for in like the Muay Thai scene coming through? We'll say from the UK.
From the UK, there's two names that ring to mind. One of them's booted me in the head, Anthony Deary.
Mm-hmm.
I will honestly say Anthony Deary. He's 18 and he's a WBC British champion. He's fighting for the WBC international title. That is a massive title, and he's 18. Like, that's incredible, even at that age to achieve. I believe he's going to go really far, really, really far. Another one is Alfie Pearce. He's fought in Combat Fight Series a few times. I'm not sure if you've seen him. He's undefeated. Every time he fights, he's fought on Dave and Kate's show a few times. Every time he fights, he's up in the levels, and he keeps stopping people over and over. I've trained with him. So for the Anthony Deary fight, I train with him once a week, every Wednesday, and I've never experienced anything like it. He's got a Muay Cow style, so he walks forward and just knees and knees and knees, and he doesn't seem to ever slow down or wear down in any way, shape or form, and it works so well for him because no one can cope with it. He's one of those, like we said about height earlier on, he's tall and he just steps forward and he knees and elbows and 5 3-minute rounds of just being kneed and elbowed. People can't put up with it.
Yeah.
And he keeps putting people away. And like he's just knocked out a WBC ranked fighter, I believe. And he's got a big fight next week on Combat Fight Series as well for another title. And he's someone that within a year of training, he was WBC ranked. Like that's incredible. Like, and it goes to show, like I said, hard work speaks talent all the time. And yeah, he's a prime example of that. So they're my two
big ones. Anything else on the list?
No,
before we get onto the I do want to touch on quickly actually as well. You put like you were talking about you hate fighting and stuff, and I see you put a post about the pre-fight nerves, and we were just speaking with Dave and Katie with it. How do you actually deal with the nerves?
So I'm very lucky because obviously my best friends are my corner team. They know me inside and out. They do. They know that I hate fighting. They know that I absolutely am petrified of it. I am not a violent person. They kind of like Dave touched up on it earlier. You can tell from the person like what they like. They like to either be very light-hearted in the changing room or they like to be serious. Me, I need to be silent. I meditate. So I'm quite lucky. My friends talk to me and they know exactly what to say to me. And I've got this little saying I say to myself, it's worked really well for me in the last 3 fights I've had, especially with the Kenneth Cruz fight when I defended my title. I was so nervous. And it's, I am a stone. And I sit there and I say it to myself about, God knows how many times. I say it every 10 seconds. And it's a way of, it's from a famous film actually. Well, not a famous film. It's one of my favourite films called Enemy at the Gates. It's about a sniper. And he says it and it's stuck with me. And I kind of, every time I get nervous, I breathe, control my breathing, and I say to myself, I'm a stone. So I don't feel anything. I don't feel pain, and it works. And it's one of those things, if you carry on throwing something at a wall, it's going to stick.
Yeah.
And that's how I control my nerves. And it gets to the point where no matter how nervous I get, the glove runner comes and gets me anyway. Yeah. I have to force myself to do it. And it's almost like, right, we're here now. Oh, God, here we go. Oh, no. And as soon as I touch gloves, that's it.
It's gone.
Adrenaline kicks in. Every natural instinct of all my hard work and training, that kicks in.
Someone that's had 60-something fights and just hates fighting.
I absolutely despise fighting. I despise it. But it's one of those things where it's all I've ever known in a way for a big proportion, almost half of my life now. And I'm only 22, so half of my life at 22, it's a long time. Yeah. And yeah, it's one of those things of all I've ever known. And a big part of one of the first things I was taught actually when I started fighting was a mask. Pretend you're wearing a mask. So especially like with the Anthony Deary fight and the Kenneth Cruz fight and the time I fought in the MMA gloves, I was absolutely petrified, but I smiled. Inside, I was almost crying. I was like backstage. You can ask any of my corner team. It was panicking. I was scared. I was anxious. I was absolutely petrified. As soon as they call my name, I have to pretend that I'm okay, because my opponent's going to know that I'm scared, and it's going to make it even worse. And it's even like when you're hit with a heavy shot, it doesn't faze you. Even inside, if I'm in agony, if I like for a low kick, if that low kick hurt and I go, you're going to kick it again. Whereas if I go, you're going to think, well, that didn't work. Inside, well, I might be in pain, but if I show it doesn't hurt me, they're not going to do it again.
Yeah. And we'll go on to the 2 final questions. How do you want to be remembered?
I will be happy with being remembered for either a coach. Obviously, I've got a long career as a coach ahead of me. Or obviously the Muay Thai Hub. I'd like that to go far. Or any of the pages, the MMA page. I love my MMA now. I love kickboxing. I love fighting in general. I love watching it. I love being part of the community. That's a massive part of it. I'd like to be remembered for being involved in any of those communities and doing something positive towards it. And in being a fighter myself, I'd like to be known for being someone that just showed that you can be a kid that starts and be like and it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to kind of be a really young, shy kid, but you can still do it. You don't have to be a violent kid to be a good fighter. And I think I'm a very good example of that. I'm a counter fighter. I used to purposely wind my opponents up and make them lose their temper and beat them. Like, I've never been violent in the slightest. I've never had really that aggression side of me. And I'd like to be remembered for that. Like, you can be playful and still be a very good fighter.
Yeah.
So yeah, either of them 3 things. If one of them works out, I'm happy.
Yeah, that's perfect, man. And your most euphoric moment in life so far?
Winning that first belt I won on the 21st Century Show. That was one of the best nights of my life. Doing something that hadn't been done yet on UK soil, like the MMA gloves, full Thai rules. Don't know why I did that, thinking about it. It really hurt. It was one of those things where I was like, right, what can I do what no one else has done? That can get me a little bit of rep for. I did it, and this guy that come over, give it to me big time. And I had, I managed to sell the fight quite well, because again, it was something that hadn't been done. So, and everyone wanted to see either me get smashed in or me win this belt. So it was having the whole venue there cheering for me, especially being the English fighter against the Czechoslovakia fighter. Me winning that belt, that was one of the best feelings of my life so far I've ever won. And then getting out the ring and my nose was busted, but I didn't feel a thing. Didn't feel a thing because I had everyone around me. My family's all coming around me, getting pictures with me whilst I've got blood trickling down my nose. Thought I broke my nose. And just knowing that I'd just proven myself to that whole venue of people, proven myself that you can do it. You can go from being shy and nothing. You can pull it off. That was one of the greatest moments of my life so far. That's
wicked, man. Skylar, what's Joe like a coach? Do you like having him coach you?
Yeah.
Is he the best coach? You got the other 2 sitting there. Is he your favourite coach?
He's the most funnest coach.
There we go.
I love to see it.
No, thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. I'll link all your stuff down below, all the pages down below. People, if you're into any sort of combat sport, head over to his pages. Go back and watch his fights. Keep an eye on him, because all out dog. But people, that's been another episode of the Curious VG, and peace, people.